Hey, I'm Dr. Scott, and this is the Stories We Tell Ourselves podcast, where we have real, honest conversations about mental health, relationships, and personal growth. Each week, we'll explore practical wisdom on emotions, trauma, addiction, and the brain based on real questions submitted by you, the listeners. A disclaimer, something to keep in mind, is that I am a therapist in practice in Dallas, but in this role here, this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only, and does not replace professional clinical advice. So keep that in mind as you listen to this. So let's get into it. This week, I'm doing something a little different. Normally, I take questions from you listeners. I answer those questions, and we talk through those together. This week, I'm going to focus a bit more on some of my posts that I've been putting out on social media, on Instagram and some other platforms out there. I've had a number of clients asking me about a couple of particular posts, and I've had some listeners reach out to me as well about these. So I want to highlight these, and these listeners and also clients have asked, can you say a bit more about these on your podcast? And so I thought it'd be a good idea to do something a little different today and focus on that. So we're going to focus on three main topics today. One is about our beliefs. We have certain beliefs about things, and we hold those beliefs. And how do we have a relationship with others and be connected, but also have beliefs about things? So we're going to talk a bit about that. We're also going to talk about congruency, about living a life where our values and the way that we live, our behaviors match our values, and facing our shadow self, facing parts of ourselves, and try to have more integration, right? That integrity, because that brings more peace. We're going to talk a bit about that as well today. And also I have an upcoming social media post that I'm going to be talking about anger here in the next week or two that I'm going to release. But I'm going to give you a bit of a taste of it and talk a bit about it before I release it, because I think it's such an important topic to talk about anger. So those are the three areas we're going to focus on today. So I'm looking forward to doing this with you. The first of the three posts that I did that I want to highlight to you, the first one's on emotional maturity, but it has to do with these belief systems that I talked about a bit ago. So I'm going to read it to you, and then we're going to talk through it, okay? Emotional maturity looks like holding a belief with certainty, yet with humility, allowing space for others to hold theirs without needing to prove you're right. Instead of pouring energy into convincing others, you hold your belief firmly with openness. The goal isn't winning arguments, it's prioritizing relationships. When we do that, we live side by side with respect, not persuasion. In our world, it's natural to have some strong beliefs, whether spiritual or political. And the first layer is simple. We have a belief, right? That's that first step. We have a belief about something, right? The second is that we have certainty. We are convinced that our opinions are correct. We have certainty about that. And it's good to hold things with certainty as a human being, right? We hold on to that belief with certainty. But what's healthy is holding it with humility, it says, right? The third layer is where we often stumble as we try to convince others. We try to persuade and convince others to our belief and really many times disconnect or cut off relationships based on that, right? Instead of pushing others away, I say here, we can hold our beliefs with openness, and true maturity is saying, I have a belief, you can have yours, and we can still live side by side. The relationship matters more than persuasion. So what I want to talk about here is I've worked with so many clients over the years, especially over the last 6 with COVID, where people or families, even at gatherings, right, for Thanksgiving or Christmas, they get in these arguments, these political debates, and they end up not having a relationship. They end up cutting off and they create distance. I've talked to countless clients about political differences, and they can't seem to maintain a relationship. And it's number one, it's sad to me that the relationship is not primary. The relationship needs to be the highest priority. You don't have to give up yourself and just acquiesce and just commit to whatever their belief is just to get along. You don't have to do that. And you don't have to hold on to your belief so strongly that you can't have a relationship with the person, right? Mature people, emotional, mature people find a way to stay connected to, that's their highest priority, stay connected to that person in that relationship. That's important to them. But they also have a way of having their own belief. That takes maturity to be able to hold on to your belief, right? I like to say that opinions are just that we develop loyalty to over time, right? Opinions we develop loyalty to over time turn into beliefs. We can have our opinions. We can have our beliefs. But it's important that over a course of time, as we develop and become more solid and these beliefs become sort of like concrete, they're solidified in many ways, that we still maintain openness and humility, right? Our ego wants to be right. It wants to convince. It wants to be better than. It wants to act like somehow it's our pride, right? That we want to somehow think that we know better than they do. And here's the thing: you're going to have a belief, and you can hold on to that strongly, politically, spiritually, whatever that might be, that you have a belief about. But it's important that when you have that belief, that you operate with humility. You hold it with humility. And you also don't spend your time trying to convince the other to have your belief, that exact belief, so you can somehow have a relationship. We've been convinced that in order to have a relationship with someone, we have to think exactly the same way. That's called emotional immaturity. That's what that's called. In psychology, in emotional development, that is called emotional maturity. You got to think just like me in order for us to have a relationship. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. You can have your belief about something, and I can also care very deeply for you at the same time, whether it's spiritually, political, whether it's beliefs about the way the world is, how this all came into being, beliefs about particular, the people that you have beliefs about, or the financial situation you may have some beliefs about what's best, right, and how to handle certain things financially or emotionally for that matter. I have all sorts of beliefs about things, but I'm also aware that my beliefs aren't exactly your beliefs, right? They may not be exactly the same way. We've got to find a way to live together in our world where we can think differently, but we still are unified in the way that we're all human beings, in my mind, made in the image of God, every single human being, and we still have a connection. And that connection is an important thing to keep in mind. We want to hold that connection between the two of us, right? And especially in romantic relationships. How many people that I've worked with who if they think differently, somehow they are not connected. And so I think that's important to consider, that you hold on to your belief, but you also hold on to that relationship at the same time. And you've got to be strong enough. Your ego strength has got to be strong enough that I don't have to prove myself to you. I have the belief, but I can think differently from you at the same time. So hope that's helpful for you to consider today. It's those 3 steps. I can have a belief, I can hold it with certainty, but there's some humility that's there. And I don't spend my time trying to convince that the relationship is primary. So next post that I want to talk about, actually I'm going to talk about 2 posts because they have some similar features to them, but I've had some clients ask about these as well, which is this idea of integration, congruency. What brings peace, right? So many people struggle with a divided self. They feel one way about something and they feel another way about something. They love their child and their child drives them crazy at the same time, right? They love their job, but they don't like parts of it, right? This is a part of being human. And many people have a feeling about it like, I have this feeling, I feel positive, but also have this negative feeling about that same thing, and they'll feel guilty about it. But really, it's important to notice those 2 parts as valuable, and they're both can exist at the same time. And so, when we talk about this idea of congruency, I wrote a post here, and I'm going to read a couple different ones, but I wrote a post here back on May 27th, so just a couple weeks back, where it says this: healthy versus unhealthy. Anxiety that comes from not living out of your values, that anxiety, that internal anxiety that comes out of not living out your values. You have a value, a belief, right? A way of living, and you go do your life and you don't act in congruence, in alignment with that particular belief, right? Or that value. And that anxiety that speaks to you, it's the healthy part of you speaking up. It's a signal, your internal alarm, right? When you get out of alignment with your values, I think it's important that you don't fear it, you use it. It's telling you to pause, reflect, adjust. Anxiety related to not living out your values, I put here, isn't the enemy. It's the healthy guide, right? It's teaching you something, right? It's teaching you, learning to listen. Listen to your anxiety is guiding you back to alignment. This is so incredibly important, because when we're not living out our values, there's a piece that's disturbed, right? Our anxiety kicks in, and that is something we need to learn from. Rather than that discomfort and wanting to run away from it or escape from it, we need to learn to sit with it and let it teach us. Let it teach us right? What is it trying to say to us? It's trying to say, hey, you're not living up to your values. Go back to what you know you believe and the way you want to live your life. That's going to help you have more peace, right? That congruency is so important. A life that's congruent is a life of peace. I cannot say that enough. I can't overstate that enough, how important that is. That's work that I've done in my own life. I continue to do. I work with clients around this, right? That's why addiction is so difficult on people. It's why it's so painful, is because it divides the self. Or trauma is so difficult because it divides the self. If you have something happening in the past that you try to cut off, disassociate from, disconnect, that creates a divided self. And that divided self will never bring peace. Integration brings peace, whether it's trauma, whether it's something that's happened to you in the past, it's some disturbance, right? Whether it's something you're ashamed of that you don't want to talk about, whether it's your shadow self, as Carl Jung talks about, that you haven't fully integrated, right? Whether it's emotions that you haven't paid attention to. These are all connected to this idea of congruency. Congruency brings peace. It's so important to keep that in mind. Here's another one that I wrote about this back on May 22nd. It says, real peace comes through integration, internal congruence, which I've been talking about. It's about letting go of your ego, embracing your true self, and facing your shadow, which is what I highlighted a moment ago, right? By accepting every part, your strengths, your flaws, your weaknesses, your things you're not proud of, things that you look back on, feel shame about. By accepting all of these, you become internally whole. Living authentically means your behavior aligns with your values, and this congruence, the shadow integrated, your values lived, increases self-acceptance, and as a result, true healing emerges. This idea of congruence, of an integrated self, is a part of our own emotional development and mental health development over time, right? That's what's so great about internal family systems, that it talks about these different parts. That's what's so great about Carl Jung and his work, and even the training I've done, and as you know, trying to lean towards becoming more of a Jungian analyst. This integration work is what it's all about, right? Even if you think about your dream life, it's your unconscious speaking to you. It's learning to listen to it and integrate it into your life, right? We as human beings, when we're whole, when we're integrated, all parts, all history, all the material that we get from our dreams, bringing all that together brings more self-acceptance. That self-acceptance helps us be more of a whole self, and that being more of a whole self will bring us more life, bring us more peace, bring us more joy, right? We're not fighting this other part of us, but that's why I talk about in here that anxiety that speaks to us about when we don't live out our values, that's healthy. It's saying something to us. It's something we need to listen to. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. That idea of internal congruence, I could go on and on about this. This is such important work, such important work. If you have an area of your life that is not integrated, something from your past that you just have a lot of shame about, that you just try to block out or disassociate from, some trauma that's happened to you, something that you're living in your daily life even now, some behavior that gets in the way of the person you want to be, and that creates that upset and that anxiety. That's the healthy part of you speaking. Don't run from it. Don't try to avoid that feeling, that unhealthy feeling. Sit with it. Let it speak to you. Get out a notepad, write about it, journal about it. That's stuff that's a gift to you. This is such good material with this congruent stuff. I like I said, it's something that hopefully is helpful for you. I'm certainly passionate about, as you can see. It's certainly something I continue to work on personally, and that's part of my reason I'm so passionate about it. But I also love helping clients with this work, and I've seen so many people have freedom and peace as a result of this work, which is exciting to be a part of, to be able to help people take that step. The third and final post that I have not released yet, I'm going to put it out in a couple weeks, but it's on anger. I want to talk about anger with you a bit. Anger gets a bad rap, right? Anger for some people can be scary. How many people want to avoid other people's anger? How many people don't want to be yelled at, right? They don't want to be talked down to. They're afraid of their own anger, right? Anger is a healthy emotion. It's a healthy emotion. It teaches us, again, we got to listen. It teaches us that something we aren't getting. Anger is a healthy emotion. It teaches us something that we aren't getting. Right. I remember going back in about 2006, I think was the time frame, 2007. I went to this museum down in Dallas. They had that display there of, I think it was called Body Works or something. It had traveled around the country. They had brought this, and it was different parts of the human body, actual parts of the human body that you could go and see in this particular museum exhibit. And I remember seeing the nervous system. It was just somebody's nerves, right? And they were kind of a light, kind of a white, off-white color, and it was just their nerves in the shape of their body that were, their legs and their arms and so on. And for whatever reason, it stuck out to me that our nervous system, even though it causes us pain, is really a gift to us, right? Think about it. If you're in your backyard, let's say, and it's really, really dark, and you reach down to pick up something, let's say, and you cut your finger and you can't see that you've just cut your finger, and you don't have your nerves to tell you the pain or the warmth of the blood on your hand, you could essentially bleed out or pass out, right? Depending on how deep the cut is. The nerves are there to teach you. Pain is there to teach you. It's important to listen to it, right? Anger is there to teach you. Anger is kind of like our central nervous system. If we compare the physical, right, to the emotional, anger is like, I like to compare it to our central nervous system. It teaches us something that we aren't getting. It causes us pain, and we have anger about it. Now, we can't always get everything we want, certainly, but it is important to take a step back when you're angry and go, what is it that I'm angry about, right? What is it that I'm not getting that I'm wanting? That could be helpful to process, right? The amygdala is calmed down by noticing I'm angry, and the amygdala is calmed down when you're able to sit with the reality of what it is you're angry about, and you're able to get clear on what that thing that you want that you can't get. And if you something maybe you can go do something about, then you do something about it. If you can't, you learn to sit with the reality of that you can't change that and come to terms and acceptance and integration, even in that helplessness that you feel, right? What you can control and what you can't control. I was reminded by a client actually recently of this quote about anger, which I thought was just beautiful. I want to read to you. It says this, and this is from C.S. Lewis. If you know the author C.S. Lewis, it says this: I sat with anger long enough. I sat with anger long enough until she told me her real name is grief. I sat with anger long enough until she told me her real name is grief. Right? Powerful, powerful stuff. Anger is not the primary emotion. You may know that if you've done any type of therapy before, done any reading. Anger is a secondary emotion. Underneath anger typically is sadness, grief, hurt, pain, all sorts of things that are driving anger, right? Anger is what you see externally. What goes on underneath is what's driving it. Many times grief is what's underneath anger, right? And why is that? Because when we feel helpless, there's sadness that's connected to that typically. When we feel like we can't change something, we wrestle with that. It becomes something we either avoid through unhealthy behaviors or something we face honestly, and we learn to integrate into our life and come to a place of acceptance of that particular thing. That's hard work. That's long work to do. And certainly with grief, I mean, it's a long process to work through. And if you are going through grief of some kind, I would encourage you to sit down with a therapist and work through that. It's important to process that. Your brain, your body, your soul, that needs that type of processing to get through that. But anger many times is about grief. It's about anger many times is about grief. It's something underneath that anger that's speaking to us. The other thing I'll say about anger is that if you struggle with anger in your life in terms of hurting relationships, yelling, snapping, being reactionary, doing behavior that you regret later, I would encourage you to really do some work and reading, research, even work with a therapist about how you can learn to pause right before you react. learning the skill. That's a whole process through different types of breathing exercises, through different little techniques out there that are really, really can be really helpful. But in terms of dealing with your anger, I would encourage you to get clear on what your goal is. How would you like to respond when you're angry? What if you're living up to your values, right? I've worked with people who get angry and then they feel so bad about it and guilty because it doesn't match the way they want to be. Getting back to that congruency stuff, right? It doesn't match how they want to be. So you got to get clear on who you want to be with anger. How do you want to figure out, how do you want to communicate that to your children, to your partner, to your friends, to your coworkers? If you want to do it with emotional maturity, you've got to dig down deep and get clear and become more self-aware and understand what's driving it. Is it the grief? Is it sadness? Is it frustration? Is it something that you want that you can't get? Is it something you can make a change about? Right? And also taking some steps on coping mechanisms to learn how to manage grief in a healthier way. Many times, or not just grief, but learn how to manage anger in a healthy way. Many times you got to take a step back and reflect, right? Do some assessment and some reflection on what is going on with anger, right? Where you feel it in your body, or you notice it, in your nervous system. How do you calm yourself? Because a big part of anger management is learning how to self-regulate and how to self-soothe. So if you struggle with that in some way, I would encourage you to do some work on that in your own life. Is to focus on how you can get really good, even proficient. We're never perfect at this, but you learn how to get good and how you manage your anger, and also how to learn to listen to it and let it teach you at the same time. So, well, that's all the time that we have today on today's episode. Hope this has been helpful to you listeners out there. If you do have a question that you want answered, please submit that to me. You can do that on social media. You can do that on my website. But please use the link in the bio below. You'll also have that option, and submit a question. I'd love to hear from you. And I'll be doing another podcast here in a couple, 2-3 weeks down the road. And look forward to you listeners writing in. If you have any other questions, feel free to write in, and love to hear from you as well. Okay, until next time, take care.